The first thing my sister said when I walked into Mom's kitchen that Saturday wasn't hello. It was, "Still just you and your cat, huh?" Her voice carried that light, teasing tone people use when they want to insult you but pretend they're joking. I smiled tightly and set down the pie I'd baked for brunch. "Still just me," I said. "And my cat." Marcy laughed, rubbing her growing belly like a trophy. "You know, you're almost 33. You might want to think about settling down before it's too late." "Time doesn't wait for anyone, Lena." I poured myself some coffee, letting the comment hang in the air. She'd said something similar at every family gathering for the past 3 years. I'd learned silence stung her more than any comeback could. Still, her words sank deeper than I wanted to admit. Mom pretended not to notice, fussing over the oven timer. Dad grunted behind his newspaper. Typical. Family gatherings had started feeling less like home and more like performance art. Everyone playing their part, Marcy the golden child, me the quiet disappointment. I sipped my coffee, already counting the minutes until I could leave. When I was little, Marcy and I were inseparable. 2 sisters, 1 shared bedroom, endless whispered secrets past bedtime. Back then, she looked up to me. But things changed after college, after I built a marketing career in Portland while she married young and stayed close to home. She became the model daughter, homemaker, mother, family girl. I became the one who thinks she's better than us. At least that's how I imagined the whispers went. When she announced her second pregnancy, everyone celebrated like it was a royal decree. I sent flowers, congratulated her, and quietly avoided the group chat that revolved around baby names and nursery colors. The next time I visited, she laughed when I mentioned traveling to Italy for work. "Must be nice having all that free time," she said. "Some of us have real responsibilities." I'd smiled then, too. But that night, driving home through the rainy highway, I'd cried without fully knowing why. Family love wasn't supposed to feel like walking through a minefield. I promised myself I'd keep my distance, polite but distant, from then on. That was the plan. Until she called me 2 months later, voice sugary sweet. It was a Wednesday evening. I'd just finished a long day at the agency, sorting out a campaign disaster, when my phone buzzed. "Hey, big sis," Marcy said, her tone overly bright. "How's my favorite career woman doing?" I leaned back in my chair, instantly suspicious. "What do you need, Marcy?" She laughed. "Why do you always assume I need something?" "Because you always do." Silence on the line for a second. Then she sighed. "Okay, fine. You're right. I do need a little help." I could almost picture her twisting her hair, pretending to sound helpless. "It's about my baby shower," she continued. "We booked this amazing place, the Garden Loft, but the deposit is due tomorrow. Things are a little tight right now with the nursery and doctor bills." She paused. "I thought maybe you could cover it." "Just until after the shower. I'll pay you back." I nearly laughed. "You want me to finance your baby shower?" "Don't say it like that," she huffed. "You make good money. It's not a big deal. Family helps family, right?" The irony hit me so hard I had to close my eyes. Family helps family, except when it's me. I wanted to hang up. I really did. But curiosity held me there. "How much is the deposit?" I asked, half dreading the answer. "Only 2,000. 2,000? It's a really nice venue," she rushed. "With catering, flowers, and a photographer. It's going to be gorgeous. You'll love it." I almost laughed again. "Marcy, I'm not even sure I'm invited." "Of course you are. You're my sister. You'll sit right next to me." Right next to her, the same sister who never missed a chance to remind me that my life was missing something. "Let me think about it," I said finally. Please, Lena, she pressed, you're the only one I can ask. Mom and Dad already gave us money for the crib. I just need a little help. You know I'd do the same for you. Would she, though? I pictured the brunches, the digs, the smug smiles. No, she wouldn't. But still, something in me wanted to believe she could. I'll let you know tomorrow, I said softly. Thank you, she squealed. After I hung up, I sat staring at the quiet apartment. I should have known that call would change everything. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Every word Marcy said replayed in my head like an echo I couldn't shut off. You're the only one I can ask. Your family. You'll love it. The manipulation was subtle, almost beautiful in its simplicity. It wasn't even about the money, it was the entitlement beneath it. The same entitlement that had defined her since we were kids. I opened my laptop and searched the garden loft. A glass-walled venue overlooking the Willamette River, draped in fairy lights and blush pink florals. It was stunning, and far beyond what most people would spend for a baby shower. Scrolling through the photos, I noticed a review mentioning the owner's name, Caroline Stone. It rang a bell. I'd handled a marketing project for her restaurant chain 2 years ago. An idea flickered in the back of my mind, faint but bright enough to hold on to. Maybe I couldn't stop Marcy from mocking me. But I could control how this story ended. I smiled for the first time that night, closed the laptop, and finally turned off the light. The next morning, the sky hung gray and heavy over Portland, matching the weight in my stomach. At work, my mind drifted away from budgets and ad copy, circling around my sister's voice. By lunchtime, I still hadn't decided. I sat at my desk staring at my keyboard when my coworker, Tasha, leaned over the divider. You good? She asked. I blinked. Yeah. Just tired. She frowned. You look like you're thinking really hard. Money problems? I shook my head. Family problems. Ah, she said knowingly, handing me half a cookie. Those are worse. I smiled despite myself. Family problems always felt harder to explain. They weren't dramatic, just small cuts over years. 1,000 quiet stings that made you doubt your worth. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Marcy told me you might help. That would be wonderful of you, honey. Another buzz, from Dad. Your sister is stressed. Do what you can. Of course they already knew. Of course the pressure was coordinated. It felt like I was 16 again, being reminded to be the good one. I stared at the phone a long time. Then I turned it over, silencing the screen. Maybe it was time I learned to be good to myself instead. Saturday came, and with it, breakfast at my parents' place, a weekly ritual I'd never managed to escape. The moment I walked in, I could smell bacon and cinnamon rolls. Home. Comfort. And tension I could never quite shake. Marcy sat at the table, glowing and smug, one hand resting dramatically on her bump. Morning, she said sweetly. Did you think about what we talked about? She didn't even wait for me to take off my coat. Mom poured orange juice, avoiding my eyes. Dad pretended to read news on his tablet. Saturday I did think. And? Her tone sharpened. I'm still deciding, I said calmly. Her smile froze, tight at the edges. It's really simple, Lena. Just say yes. You always help. Always. Such a heavy word for someone who rarely received help back. Mom finally spoke. Sweetheart, your sister's expecting. It's a special time. We just want it to be perfect. Dad nodded. Family comes first. I swallowed. Does it? They paused, confused. Marcy waved a hand. Oh, please. Don't be dramatic. It's 2,000, not your life savings. A spark of anger flared behind my ribs. I kept my voice calm. I said, I'm thinking. For the first time, Marcy's smile cracked. Fog. After breakfast, Mom asked me to help clean up. It was her gentle way of making sure I stayed behind. Marcy retreated to the living room, humming while scrolling baby shower inspo on her phone. Mom lowered her voice. Why are you hesitating? Your sister is counting on you. I set down a plate. Because she doesn't respect me. Mom blinked, clearly unprepared for honesty. She's family. That's not the same thing, I said. Mom pressed her lips together. She's pregnant. Hormones make people say silly things. She's been saying them for years. Silence stretched between us. Behind us, laughter, Marcy's bright and careless. Mom glanced toward the living room. She envies you, you know. Your career, your freedom. The words surprised me. But then Mom added quietly, you could be kinder. She needs support right now. I almost laughed at that. I needed support too, just a different kind. A quieter kind. One nobody remembered to offer. I dried my hands slowly. I'll let you know tonight. Mom nodded stiffly, disappointment plain. As I grabbed my coat, Marcy called out, don't overthink it, Lena. Just be a good sister. I walked out without answering. My teeth were clenched the whole drive home. Crescent moon. That evening, I sat cross-legged on my couch, lights dim, rain tapping softly against the windows. I should have felt alone, but strangely, I felt clear. I replayed every moment from brunch, the comments, the silence, the expectations. For so long, I'd swallowed those little cuts and kept showing up. Not because they earned it, but because I was taught that family meant loyalty, no matter the cost. My phone buzzed again. Marcy, any update? I need to tell the venue tomorrow. A second text followed immediately, don't make this difficult. Difficult. All my life, I'd bent so I wouldn't be that word. A new message popped up, from Caroline Stone. I'd emailed her earlier, asking about the venue availability. Her reply, call me. I remember you, let's talk. My heartbeat picked up. Maybe the universe was handing me something, a chance to write my own ending. I dialed. Lena, her warm voice answered. Yes. Thanks for responding. I take care of women who take care of themselves, she said simply. Tell me what you need. And just like that, the next chapter of my life began, quietly, firmly, on my terms. Caroline and I talked for 20 minutes. She remembered my work, the late nights finishing her ad campaign, the creative ideas she praised back then. I owe you one, she said. So tell me, what's really going on? I didn't sugarcoat it. I told her about my sister, the digs, the pressure, the ask. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she breathed out slowly. You don't want to pay, she said. Not a question. I don't mind helping family, I admitted. But I want respect too. That's not help, she replied. That's tribute. Her words hit deep, sharp and true. I swallowed. She booked your venue. I don't want to ruin her event. Caroline hummed. You won't. But you can reserve the same date somewhere else. Quietly. A slow, shocked laugh rose in my chest. Why would I do that? So you have options, she said softly. Not obligations. I thanked her and hung up, feeling lighter than I had in months. I didn't know exactly what I'd do yet. But for the first time, I wasn't reacting, I was choosing. And choice tasted like power. Soft, simple, but real. Cloud with rain. By Sunday morning, I had a plan, not for revenge exactly, but for self-respect. I opened my email and typed a polite message to Marcy. Hey, I can't cover your deposit. I hope you understand. Maybe scale down or find a cheaper spot. I read it twice before hitting send. It was short, calm, mature. Still, my chest thudded while I waited for her reply. It came 5 minutes later. You're kidding, right? You make more money than anyone I know. What's $2,000 to you? Then another message, sharper. You've always been selfish, Lena. You'd rather spend on vacations than family. I put the phone down, forcing slow breaths. I didn't reply. Instead, I made tea and watched the rain slide down the windows. It hurt, of course it did. But it also felt freeing, finally not playing my assigned role. By evening, another text came through. Fine. Forget it. We'll figure it out. Don't bother coming to the shower if you can't contribute. I smiled faintly. She didn't realize how much she'd just revealed. She didn't want me there, she wanted what I could give. And that realization was worth far more than $2,000. Leaf fluttering in wind. The next week passed in a blur of work deadlines and silence from my family. Mom didn't call, which meant she was quietly disappointed. Dad sent one text, "You should have helped your sister. She's pregnant." I didn't reply to him either. By Thursday, the tension had settled like fog I couldn't shake. At the office, Tasha noticed again. You look calmer, she said. Did you set a boundary? I smiled. I guess I did. She nodded like that explained everything. Good. Boundaries make people mad at first. Then they respect you for them. I wanted to believe that. That evening, I drove to the grocery store after work, craving the small comfort of routine. As I reached for a carton of eggs, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Oh! Look who it is, the too-busy career woman. I turned. Marcy stood there, belly leading the way, grinning like this was all a game. Hi, I said carefully. She crossed her arms. You could have just said you didn't want to help. You didn't need to make it a whole thing. I blinked. That's exactly what I did. Her smile faltered. People always expected drama when you chose peace. She followed me down the aisle, keeping her tone light but her words sharp. You know, Mom's really upset, she said. She says you've changed. I hope so, I said quietly. Marcy's eyebrows knit. You used to be nice. No, I corrected, I used to be quiet. That stopped her for a second. You're unbelievable, she said finally. All I wanted was some help. You act like I asked for a kidney. I sighed, placing bread in my cart. You asked for money, Marcy. That's help I can choose to give or not. Her voice rose slightly. So, what, you're too good for your own family now? A couple passing by glanced at us, curious. I lowered my tone, steady. No. I'm just done paying to be treated like I don't matter. Her jaw clenched. Enjoy being alone forever. She turned and stormed off, leaving the faint scent of her floral perfume behind. I stood still for a moment, pulse pounding but calm. For years, I dreamed of saying something that simple, something that true. It didn't feel cruel. It felt clean. Like truth cutting through years of fog. Sun behind small cloud. 2 weeks later, Mom called. Her voice trembled with the kind of politeness that meant guilt was coming. Your sister's shower is this weekend, she began. You should come. I thought she didn't want me there. She didn't mean that, Mom said quickly. Things got emotional. I'm sure they did. Please, Lena. Don't make this worse. I almost laughed. Don't make this worse, as if my silence was more damaging than Marcy's cruelty. Still, I agreed to come. Not for them, but for myself. I wanted to walk into that room knowing I no longer needed anyone's approval. Saturday arrived bright and cloudless. I wore a pale blue dress, simple and elegant. When I arrived, the venue took my breath away, sunlight streaming through glass walls, tables covered in pink roses and white lace. Caroline had outdone herself. Marcy looked surprised to see me but masked it with a too bright smile. Well, look who changed her mind, she said. Just here to celebrate, I replied. Her smirk faltered when she noticed Caroline wave at me from across the room. Oh, she said slowly. You know her? Very well, I said. She's an old client. The shower unfolded like a stage play. Marcy glowed in her designer dress, surrounded by guests showering her with gifts and praise. Mom fussed, Dad hovered, and I sat quietly near the back, sipping sparkling water. At one point, Caroline approached and hugged me warmly. You look lovely, she said aloud, then whispered, everything's taken care of. I nodded. Marcy noticed, of course. Her eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering. Later, during speeches, the event coordinator announced that the final invoice had been settled in full by a generous anonymous sponsor. Everyone clapped, assuming it was Marcy's husband or parents. Marcy beamed proudly, soaking in the applause. I just watched. She didn't know yet that Caroline had given her a deep discount and that the remaining balance had been covered not by me, but by Caroline herself, as a favor. No one owed anyone anything. Marcy's pride rested on an illusion, and I wasn't going to correct it. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't exposure, it was silence. Watching her bask in borrowed glory, I felt something I hadn't in years, peace. Cloud with rain. The next morning, my phone buzzed at 7:12 a.m. Marcy. I hesitated before answering. Good morning, I said carefully. Her voice was clipped. Did you pay the venue balance? No, I said. Why? She exhaled sharply. Caroline told me someone took care of it, but she wouldn't say who. I assumed it was you. It wasn't. So who was it? Maybe someone who actually respects you, I said lightly. She didn't laugh. Lena, if this is some kind of power play. It's not, I interrupted. I told you I wasn't paying for your shower. I meant it. She went silent for a moment. You humiliated me. How? Everyone thought I paid. They'll find out I didn't. That's embarrassing. I almost laughed. You're welcome. Her voice rose. You're impossible. Maybe, I said softly. But I'm done apologizing for it. Before she could respond, I ended the call. The quiet after was almost sacred. I made coffee and stepped out onto my balcony, watching the city wake below. Somewhere inside, something shifted, the last piece of guilt breaking loose. For once, I didn't feel like the small sister anymore. I felt like a woman standing exactly where she belonged. Fallen leaf. For a week, I didn't hear from anyone. No texts, no calls, not even a stray comment on social media. It was eerie at first, the silence of a family used to constant noise. Then, one evening, Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door, and she stood there holding a casserole like it was a peace offering. Can I come in? She asked. Of course. She sat at the kitchen table, looking smaller than I remembered. I think things got out of hand, she said quietly. I stayed silent. Your sister's embarrassed. She thought you, well, you know how she gets. She can't stand not being in control. That's not my problem anymore, I said gently. Mom sighed. You were always the strong one. But sometimes strength looks like forgiveness. I met her eyes. And sometimes it looks like walking away. She studied me for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she nodded. I just don't want this to break the family. It already did, I said softly. We just stopped pretending. She didn't argue. When she left, the casserole sat untouched on the counter. It smelled like guilt, comfort, and something almost like love. Crescent moon. The weeks that followed felt like breathing clean air after years underwater. I worked late, met friends for dinner, started painting again, small pieces of myself I'd shelved long ago. For once, my phone wasn't an instrument of obligation. It rang when I wanted it to, not when someone needed something. One evening, Caroline invited me to dinner at her restaurant. We sat near the window, overlooking the city lights reflecting in the river. I heard the shower was a hit, she said, smiling. It was, I admitted. Marcy got everything she wanted. Except you, she said knowingly. I laughed. You sound like you've lived this story before. Every woman I know has, she replied. Her words lingered long after dinner ended. On my drive home, I realized something simple but profound. For years, I'd thought my worth depended on family approval. Now, I understood it never had. Freedom wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, and sometimes looked like saying no. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because everything was fixed, but because I'd finally stopped trying to fix it. Sun behind small cloud. 2 months later, Marcy texted. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a while before replying, sure. She came over that evening, her belly now huge, her energy subdued. The confident sparkle was gone, replaced by something almost fragile. Hi, she said softly. Hey. She sat on my couch, fidgeting with her ring. I wanted to apologize, she said. For everything. I've been thinking a lot since the shower. You were right, I took you for granted. I didn't interrupt. She swallowed. I was jealous. You have independence, freedom. I thought mocking you would make me feel better about my choices. Her honesty startled me. And did it? I asked. She shook her head, eyes glistening. No. It just made me feel smaller. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, I said, You hurt me, Marcy. I know, she whispered. I'm sorry. The words weren't perfect, but they were real. When she left that night, she hugged me tight, something she hadn't done in years. And I realized that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It just meant I was free. When the baby was born, she named her Hope. Mom called me the same morning, voice bright with joy. She's beautiful, Lena. You should come visit. For the first time in a long while, I said yes, and meant it. The hospital room was warm, sunlight filtering through white curtains. Marcy looked exhausted but radiant, her tiny daughter bundled against her chest. When she saw me, she smiled weakly. Meet your niece, she whispered. I stepped closer, gazing down at the small, perfect face. Her fingers curled instinctively around mine, impossibly soft. Something melted inside me, not guilt, not obligation, just love. Pure and unmeasured. Marcy looked up. Thank you for coming. I nodded. Congratulations. We didn't need to say anything more. The past was still there, but it didn't own me anymore. As I left the hospital, I walked into crisp autumn air, the sky a clear blue stretch above the trees. For the first time in years, I didn't feel smaller than anyone. I didn't feel missing or incomplete. I felt whole, entirely, quietly, gloriously whole. Fallen leaf. A few days after visiting the hospital, I drove up to the lake. It was a place I hadn't been in months, a cabin I'd bought quietly 2 years ago, after my first big promotion. Back then, my family had called it a waste of money, a lonely woman's hobby. Now, as I unlocked the door and stepped inside, it felt like proof of something sacred, my own life built on my own terms. The air smelled like cedar and pine. Dust motes floated in sunlight across the wooden floors. I lit a small fire and sat by the window, watching the water ripple. I thought about Marcy, about our childhood, about how love could twist itself into envy and still somehow find its way back to grace. For the first time, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt grateful. Grateful that I'd learned to stand on my own. Grateful that I didn't let bitterness become my identity. Family could wound you, but it could also teach you what not to accept. I poured myself a cup of tea, smiled, and whispered to the quiet room. I'm finally okay. Cloud with rain. Winter came early that year. Portland's skyline blurred under gray rain and fog that seemed endless. I stayed busy, work, friends, small joys. But sometimes, I'd catch myself wondering if Marcy truly understood what changed between us. One evening, she called. Hey, she said, voice softer than before. We're having a small get-together next week, just family. Nothing fancy. I'd like you to come. Her tone wasn't coated in guilt or pressure this time. It was sincere. I'll think about it, I said. Please do. Hope would love to see you. That name, Hope, still made me smile. After we hung up, I stared at the ceiling, thinking how different it felt now. No resentment. No debt. Just two sisters trying, in their imperfect way, to start again. And maybe that was enough. Not to rewrite the past, but to stop letting it write the future. Sometimes love didn't roar back into your life. Sometimes it whispered, quiet, tentative, but real. I decided I'd go. The dinner was simple, soup, salad, laughter that sounded a little awkward but genuine. Marcy looked tired, her hair pulled into a messy bun, the glamorous glow replaced by something humbler. When Mom passed me the bread, she squeezed my hand lightly. It felt like an apology without words. After dinner, Marcy brought out a small box wrapped in gold paper. This is for you, she said. I blinked. For me? She nodded. Open it. Inside was a photo, me holding baby Hope at the hospital. In the corner, she'd written, "Thank you for showing me what strength looks like." For a second, I couldn't speak. Tears filled my eyes, warm and unexpected. All those years of comparison, mockery, silence, washed away in one honest gesture. We didn't fix everything that night. But we didn't need to. Some stories don't end with perfection. They end with peace. And that's rarer and far more beautiful. Sun behind small cloud. A month later, I returned to the cabin again. It had become my quiet ritual, weekends away from noise, from people, from expectation. I brought paints this time, blank canvases and no plan. The lake reflected a sky streaked with orange and lavender as the sun sank. I painted what I felt, not what I saw. Bold strokes, soft edges, light meeting shadow. When I was done, I realized what it was, a portrait of two women standing apart, yet somehow connected by a thin thread of gold. Sisters. Different, flawed, but bound by something deeper than pride. I smiled. Maybe we'd never be best friends. Maybe that was okay. Love didn't always look like closeness. Sometimes it looked like letting each other be. That night, I sat on the deck, stars shimmering above the trees, and whispered a quiet thank you. To Marcy, for teaching me limits. To myself, for finally honoring them. Spring arrived early, soft and green, the city waking from its long gray sleep. One afternoon, I got a text from Marcy, Hope's first smile today. Thought you'd want to see. A photo followed, the baby's tiny face lit with joy, eyes wide and curious. I smiled so hard it hurt. For once, nothing about it made me ache. No envy. No guilt. Just love, pure, simple, and unmeasured. Later that evening, I stood by my window watching the sunset bleed gold across the rooftops. Life had changed quietly, like dawn creeping over water. No grand gestures, no apologies shouted into the sky. Just small moments, steady, honest, real. Marcy and I still teased each other sometimes. But the difference was, I no longer mistook her laughter for my reflection. I had my own. I had built a life that wasn't missing anything after all. And as I turned off the lights, ready to rest, one truth settled deep and calm inside me. Sometimes, the greatest revenge is living in peace. And finally being free.